Before first light, Silver Creek lay wrapped in mist, its glassy surface reflecting the pale arcs of starlight. Oliver the river otter slipped out of his holt beneath an overturned driftwood log, sleek fur shedding beads of dew as he emerged onto the muddy bank. He stretched, arching his back, then dipped his long, muscular tail into the chill water, sending tiny ripples outward like whispered warnings. As he paddled upstream, nose just above the current, Oliver's whiskers quivered at an unfamiliar scent, a faint chemical tang that cut through the creek's usual aroma of algae and fresh rain. He followed the odor beneath an overhanging tangle of willow roots, where the water pooled and slowed. There, clinging to submerged branches, was an iridescent sheen that shifted through colors like spilled oil on pavement. Oliver's sensitive nose detected solvents he had only encountered when humans fished plastics from the water's edge: benzene, heavy metals, and unknown industrial compounds. Alarmed, Oliver surfaced and chattered, a sharp, urgent cry that split the dawn hush. He bounded onto the bank, pads sinking into the soft mud, and scampered toward the old mill dam where Lena Reyes, the creek's steward, had installed water quality sensors. The sun's first rays crowned the treetops, and Oliver's ears flicked toward a faint mechanical thrum. The pumps at the gravel plant upstream, long shuttered but now suspiciously active. Bounding along the shoreline, Oliver reached the sensor array, a floating buoy tethered by steel cable to an anchored weight. The probe housing lay shattered, wires trailing like exposed veins into the current. Oliver nosed the broken sensor, then darted to a nearby culvert opening, its rusted edges smeared with dark residue. He dove beneath the concrete lip and surfaced beside two half-submerged drums, their tops pitted with corrosion. One lay cracked open, its toxic contents leaking into the creek. Oliver chittered again, frantic. His heart pounded as he dashed back to the main channel and performed a series of high-speed circles, a known "follow me" signal he shared with Lena's dive team. In this silent pre-dawn world, Oliver's warning rippled through the water and into the air alike. Something sinister had seeped into Silver Creek, and only swift action could stem the tide of pollution that threatened every creature in its flow. By Dow. Mid-morning, sunlight filtered through the maple canopy above Silver Creek, turning the water a jade-green tapestry of dancing light and shadow. Dr. Lena Reyes, clad in her slim neoprene waders and knee-high rubber boots, steered her flat-bottomed kayak into the shallows, the skeg cutting silently through the current. Her instrument pack, a waterproof pouch clipped to her life vest, hummed softly with the data logger she'd set to sample nutrient levels 3 times a day. Today's primary task had been routine: check dissolved oxygen, pH, and turbidity at the Mid-Creek station. But as she reached the battered wooden buoy marking the sensor array, a frantic otter chatter split the stillness. Oliver the river otter surfaced beside the kayak, his whiskers bristling and tail flicking in rapid attention signals. He tapped the buoy's orange pennant 3 times with his webbed forepaw, a coded alert Lena had trained to recognize. Frowning, she secured her paddle in the kayak's holder and reached for her snorkel gear stashed under the bow hatch. With swift, practiced motions, she donned her mask, slathered anti-fog across the lens, and clipped on a compact dive light. Sliding into the creek, Lena felt the water's cool embrace immediately sharpen her senses. Underwater, Oliver led the way upstream, weaving between granite stones encrusted with moss and through an arch of submerged tree roots. Lena's goggles picked out the otter's sleek form, lithe and purposeful, nose grazing the riverbed in deliberate sweeps. She followed in his wake, noting the water's murky haze where it deepened, turbidity spiking near that first oily sheen. As they rounded a bend, Lena spotted the sensor buoy's probe housing crushed and its wires shredded, filament bundles trailing like seaweed in the eddies. Oliver chattered again and darted toward a rusted culvert beneath the creek's high bank. Lena finned after him, curiosity and concern spiking her adrenaline. Inside the culvert's mouth, 2 corroded steel drums lay half-submerged, one intact, the other split open, its contents sluicing dark, chemical-streaked water into the stream. Lena clicked on her dive light, illuminating the alchemical swirl of sludge, and gently scooped water into a sampling vial. A pungent, acrid sting burned her nostrils. Industrial solvents far outside the creek's natural spectrum. Back at the buoy, Lena surfaced, heart hammering. Oliver waved his forepaws in vigorous approval as if to say, "You see it now, act quickly." She clambered into her kayak, stowed the samples in a sealed container, and radioed the field station. "Doctor, Reyes here. Chemical spill confirmed at Mid Creek Culvert. I'm returning with evidence. Expect enforcement team within the hour." Oliver chirped triumphantly, then dove beneath the surface, tail flicking in satisfaction. He had guided Lena to the heart of the conspiracy, and now the true work of cleanup and accountability would begin. By late afternoon, the sun had burned away the dawn mist, leaving Silver Creek sloping wide and shallow beneath a cloudless sky. Dr. Reyes directed her small environmental enforcement team, 2 uniformed officers and a wildlife technician, into chest-high waders, rifles of water-sampling kits strapped to their sides. Oliver the Otter paddled at the lead, whiskers twitching in anticipation, guiding them downstream toward the culvert where the poisoned drums lay. They approached the gravel plant's abandoned intake structure. Rusted steel girders sprawled across a concrete apron, overgrown with skunk cabbage and elderberry. Birdsong had fallen silent here. Even the usual babble of minnows vanished under the pall of chemical sheen. Officer Scott crept forward, flashlight trained on the split drum, its contents still oozing oily rivulets into the creek's flow. Oliver clambered onto the intake's lower beam, nose pressed to the sludge, then darted upstream, beckoning the team to follow. Suddenly, 2 figures emerged from the shadows of the plant's loading shed, rubber boots splashing through puddles spiked with sludge. They clutched new drums, heavy steel cylinders stenciled with hazard symbols, and hurried toward the culvert's lip. Oliver emitted a frantic series of chirps and dove between their legs, snagging one man's pant cuff and pulling him off balance. The first poacher splashed into the shin-deep water with an outraged curse. His companion whirled, hose in hand, but Oliver lunged, biting through the hose at its coupling. The pressurized flow of chemical water hissed to a halt as the pipe detached and the poachers stumbled backward. Officer Scott and the wildlife technician advanced, nets in hand. One poacher attempted to lower another drum into the water, only to find Oliver seated atop it, tail flicking defiantly. The officer waded in and cuffed the stunned man before he could react. His partner, eyes wild, tried to flee across the slick gravel. In one smooth leap, Oliver intercepted him, grasping the man's ankle with nimble paws and tripping him face first into the muck. By the time the enforcement team arrived at the scene, with Lena carrying her sealed water samples for evidence, the 2 polluters lay subdued on the creek bank, jackets caked in toxic sludge and hands bound. Oliver paddled triumphantly around them, tail upraised like a badge of honor. The team collected the remaining drums and gathered soil and water for lab analysis, confident they had caught the criminals red-handed. As the poachers were led away in handcuffs, Lena knelt beside Oliver and stroked his wet fur. "You did it again, partner," she whispered. He chittered softly in acknowledgement, then dashed back into the clear water, ready to patrol his beloved creek, ever vigilant against the next toxic threat. By the time the lab trucks arrived at dawn, Silver Creek's banks were cordoned off with yellow environmental hazard tape. Lena Reyes oversaw while the county's toxicologists unsealed the steel drums Oliver had exposed. Inside the mobile testing van, Dr. Patel extracted fresh samples. Water spiked with benzene at 20 times legal limits, soil clogged with heavy metal particulates, and sediment layers bearing telltale fingerprints of industrial solvents. Each vial was logged, refrigerated, and double-bagged to maintain chain of custody, evidence that would prove the gravel plant's culpability beyond dispute. Meanwhile, at the abandoned plant site, enforcement officers served search warrants on behalf of the state environmental agency. Flanked by Lena and her team, they pushed open locked gates and swept through concrete bunkers and rusted piping networks. In a back room thick with dust, they found ledger books detailing unreported chemical receipts, blueprints of unauthorized discharge pipes leading directly into the creek, and internal emails authorizing illicit dumping to cut costs. Oliver, paddling vigilantly in the shallows, nosed a discarded boot and unearthed a hidden cache of paperwork tucked beneath a floor grate, documents that confirmed management's role in the pollution conspiracy. By midday, the department director arrived to personally oversee the shutdown. With a snap of heightened authority, he ordered the plant's main valves locked and its access roads barricaded. Heavy machinery was immobilized and company vehicles were impounded. Lena watched as agency lawyers served CFO Gregory Santos with a cease and desist, accompanied by an emergency cleanup order and notices of civil penalties exceeding $500,000. Santos protested feebly, but the evidence was overwhelming. Photographs of Oliver's discovery, lab results, and sworn officer affidavits left no room for doubt. That evening, Silver Creek's community center overflowed for a public forum. Fishermen, canoeists, and families whose children played along the banks spoke with gratitude, teary-eyed, about how Oliver's keen senses and Lena's swift action had saved the creek from irreversible damage. Under a large banner reading "Silver Creek Restored and Protected," Lena presented a citation of civic commendation to Oliver. The Otter, wearing a custom-fitted ribbon of braided reeds, accepted the award by chattering into a microphone held by a laughing ranger. As the crowd applauded, children clamoring for high fives and adults snapping photos, Oliver's eyes gleamed with pride. The enforcement was complete. The polluters were exposed, the plant was shuttered, and Silver Creek's future was once again safe, thanks to the river otter whose undercover vigilance had revealed the chemical crimes hidden beneath the water's surface. Spring rains swelled Silver Creek into a lively ribbon of clear, tumbling water. Oliver the Otter emerged from his holt before dawn, whiskers quivering at the crisp, untainted scent of the stream. Gone was the oily sheen. In its place, sunlight danced on riffles alive with tiny minnows. He dove beneath the surface and returned to the shallows, where a school of juvenile trout darted among river rocks, their glassy scales flashing silver in the current. Oliver chased them in playful arcs, a joyful patrol of the creek he had saved. On the banks, Lena and her restoration team worked side by side with local volunteers. Children in waders planted native rushes and willows to stabilize the shoreline. Anglers released hatchery trout to bolster wild stocks, while conservationists relocated mussels to anchor the river's filtration. All around, life sprang anew. Dragonflies flitted over the glasswort mats, kingfishers perched on alder branches, and frogs croaked from bulrush clusters. Each species' return felt like a handshake of thanks for the river's revival. In the center of the restored reach stood a solar-powered monitoring station, humming quietly as sensors recorded water quality in real time. Lena checked the digital readouts: dissolved oxygen, pH, and heavy metal levels well within safe thresholds. She tapped data to a mobile app that would feed into the county's conservation dashboard, ensuring any future anomalies would trigger an immediate alert. At her side, Oliver nosed a sensor housing, prompting an appreciative laugh from the technician who patted his head. "You've earned your retirement gig, partner," she said, clipping a miniature badge, an otter's paw print, onto his harness. That evening, the community gathered beneath strings of lanterns on a wooden viewing platform overlooking the creek. Local elders recited blessings in the native tongue, fishermen shared tales of the day's catch, and children released battery-powered lanterns that drifted in the current like guiding stars. Lena stepped forward with a carved cedar plaque mounted to a river cane post. "In honor of Oliver, Silver Creek's Waterway spy, whose vigilance and bravery restored our river's heart." As Oliver nosed the post and chattered in delight, fireflies emerged to join the lantern glow, turning the riparian willow grove into a cathedral of light. In that moment, every whisper of the water, every rustle of reeds, and every flicker of a fish fin spoke of hope reborn, and of a single otter whose unwavering spirit had turned chemical crisis into a thriving living river once more.